you went from engineer to lawyer. How do you take the engineering part of what your basis of knowledge and experience was, and then transition that?
It's very challenging. Switching off from engineering to law, it's challenging. And I was doing it for years. I was working full-time as an engineer and studied full-time law. And then I had to finish work, go to uni, switch off my brain, my engineering, and then looking at a judgment, a 200 pages judgment, which I barely understood.
Pouyan, Aski.
That's right.
How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's really exciting to have you on.
Thank you.
So tell me right now, what mission are you on, and what are some of your goals in the next 90 days?
Well, currently, obviously, I've changed careers. So at the moment, my main goal is to learn and observe as much as I can. And I think that's just going to be my mission for the next couple of years, I guess, because I believe in learning, and especially in law is not, it's a very steep learning curve. Like the more you do this stuff, the more you learn. Whereas I guess coming from engineering background is once you learn 2 + 2 is 4, that's it. It's, people say engineering is black and white, law is grey, but yeah. So I think for me, the more I do more work, the more I learn. And that's what I'm focusing mainly on for the next, to get at least 2 years. Just to get that at least sooner than later, phase 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, seeing your transition from engineering to law, definitely want to dive deep on that. So at the moment where you are, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What drives you to get the suit on and get into the office right now?
I think the first probably is because I was always very passionate about law. Not that I didn't like engineering. I loved engineering. I worked for almost 10 years in engineering. So obviously I loved it. But I'm passionate about law because where I am, I'm in construction over litigation. Where I am, we are helping people who are in needs, who are in trouble. And that's something that I always feel good about. Like being a doctor, I hate going to hospitals. I hate the environment. But if you ask a doctor, my wife is a doctor, so she feels good when she discharges someone home. And this is the same. Like, I'm like, yeah, someone is in trouble. They're financially in trouble. They've got someone else suing them, demanding money, and just help them out. Not fighting, not having the fighting spirit, but it's more like helping people out. And this is exactly what I'm waking up every day to. And I'm hoping, you're never gonna always win. Sometimes you fail, but always feeling like, yeah, today is the day that, let's see what we can do for someone.
That's amazing. So all the construction companies out there, here's your guy, look him up. I mean, you're out there to help people. I love that. And it is so important to have that passion drive. But I think the parallel, like you mentioned, being a doctor, lawyer, engineer, I'd like to think that they're all in this same standing to help people, to help communities, to help the industry. On that, do you feel that engineers, lawyers and doctors in the current state of play are on some sort of level playing field? Or do you think that maybe, and at least in my mind, I feel like there are different layers in society? What do you think? What's your take on that?
Well, yeah. I think that's right. And I always say that engineers are a little bit underrated in Australia. They do a great job. They're actually helping people to have a better quality in their life. You may not even feel that this light fitting, the lux level in this room, how it's going to impact your well-being and health if you be in a little bit dark room for say a period of 6 months. It does, and people don't pay attention. People think, oh yeah, it's a downlight, but it does help. And I think engineers in Australia specifically, if you go to US, that's a different story.
Sure.
But in Australia, they are a little bit underrated, and I don't like it,
Yeah.
But I think overall, the culture here is like they don't care who you are. You're a doctor, engineer, you're a bus driver or a lawyer. That's what we have to all be, or do, like treat people the same.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is, specifically engineering, I don't see much advanced technology that would attract, say, top engineers of the world. At least we don't have that kind of, from my point of view, we don't have that kind of industry in Australia. We don't have a huge R&D tech companies that, I'm an MIT engineer, I want to go and work in that tech company instead. We don't have it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that when I wanted to do law, I was like, okay, if I want to stay in engineering, what options do I have in order to kind of distinguish myself from my peers?
Yeah.
I was either doing law, not to become a lawyer, or doing MBA.
Yeah.
Because I thought, getting into management roles, either would be helpful. And then I picked law because MBA was like, I need to have 10, 15 years experience, be in the business, learn, and then maybe at an associate or associate director level, then do MBA to help the business. Then I'll pick law. When I was thinking about that, I thought, what about the Master of Electrical Engineering or Master of something engineer related?
Yeah.
And then I sort of dived into it as like, there's no point to do a master or PhD if I'll be in the construction industry here. What's the point? There's not such an advanced technology here that I can use. Otherwise, if I want to do it, it's better off going somewhere like Europe or US.
Yeah. I really wanted to pick up on a few things you said, because for me, that pathway into tech, that whole, you said MIT, people know what that is. I guess we have UTS, bit different, but how did you make that decision at the time? Pros and cons, looking at the future, looking at trajectory. Was it that you went, okay, if I want to accelerate my career, I've got MBA, Masters of Electrical Engineering and Law. How did you navigate that at the time? And what triggered you to make that decision?
What triggered me, I always wanted to be different with other people. Like, I'm coming from a background, with like my dad being working on a cargo ship as a radio officer, traveling on container ships as a kid. Very adventurous childhood.
Awesome.
We moved to Dubai 3 years, lived in Dubai, then we moved back to Iran, lived for another couple of months, then we moved here. We've never had a very steady, stable, living in a town, grow up there, go to uni, we never had such a life. And I always wanted to be like, what I think people, like successful people are different from the norm of society.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And when I actually started law straight away after, I was working as an engineer, but straight away after my graduation, engineering, I said, I'm not going to go back, sit at the uni when I'm 30. No way.
Yeah.
When I'm 35, when I have a baby, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Why not now when I'm young, when I have energy, when I have the time?
Yeah.
Do it now. And then I'll make I can decide which way I want to go.
Yeah.
But back to your point, because I wanted to be different to my peers, in a good way, I thought, I gotta do something else. This is not enough.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going backward or.
Well, you won't know for a while, I'm sure, but at least you're learning along the way.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the entrepreneurial engineer mindset is not just about being an engineer. It's about using your engineering skills and entrepreneurial skills to have a greater impact, to create more value. And I really want to hone down on this transition because it's really insightful. When I was at uni, I went away mid-block. I was 2.5 years in. I went to Canada skiing, had a great time. I left wanting to go on holiday, and then when I came back, I just wanted to learn. I wanted to learn. I was yearning, like I needed the knowledge. I'd done what I needed. It was sort of out of the system in a way, and I came back and I'm like, I'm going to do law. And I thought about doing environmental law.
Okay.
And funnily enough, I did talk to some people, and I did go to the Dean of Engineering, who at the time was maybe a little biased, but he did say to me, well, is it the technical expertise that you are after, or is it the law? And in my mind, I went, well, I like the idea of the technical expertise. And off the back of that, really looking at, okay, where you are, and because I could see that you went from engineer to lawyer, how do you take the engineering part of what your basis of knowledge and experience was, and then transition that into something like law that maybe, like you said, might be a little bit grey? How do you take that mindset through, and then and how do you leverage what your background is to where you are now?
Okay. First of all, I think it's very challenging. Switching off from engineering to law, it's challenging. And I was doing it for years. I was working full-time as an engineer and I studied full-time law. And then I had to finish work, go to uni, switch off my brain, my engineering, and then looking at a judgment, a 200 pages judgment, which I barely understood.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot of skills that I've learned through my engineering that I have transferred or transferable.
Yeah.
Working with people, any kind of people. You're not choosing your colleagues, right? You're not in control of picking up your manager. Not to mention the soft skills.
Yeah.
Working with people, any kind of people. You're not choosing your colleagues, right? You're not in control of picking up your manager.
Yeah.
And managing can be any kind of person. And then, working under pressure, working to the deadlines. You've seen that. You got your client on the other side. I need the drawing to be submitted. I need them, and then you got to do late nights. That's pretty normal. These are the things that I've learned. But apart from that, something that I'm in construction law, so I haven't kind of gone to a completely new area of law, say employment or family or criminal. And I always wanted to pick something that I can use my engineering, because I love my engineering at the period that I was an engineer.
Yeah.
I always wanted to, otherwise why would I just work and study, just leave engineering, do law, and then do family or something unrelated.
Sure.
That's why I don't regret changing my career, because we get expert reports, we get drawings, defects. The other day I was just doing a table and called LULAC table. It's coming from a famous case, and it's about defects. And I was doing it in such a way that the builder O2 have done blah 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 blah, and it was all engineering. They should have checked their structure, something they should have done, and then my supervisor looked at it and said, this is great, but we can't say that as a lawyer. We have to give it to the expert to comment on engineering. Yes. But this is great, and then said, I'll have to switch off. I can't give opinions as an engineer anymore. We deal with numbers. there's a lot of cases that about payment. People wants the money. People don't want to pay their money.
Yeah.
And it becomes complicated. You've done the job. You look at the report that they say we believe we've done 80% of the concrete work.
Sure.
You look at the reports. You're the one who's going to decide. Is it actually 80%, or it is not? And does the claim is the claim valid or not? The other day, one of the partners, he was going through the same exercise. He had the drawings. Then he was coming to me. What is that symbol for? What is that symbol for?
Yeah.
I was telling him, this is it. And then he came to me and said, on mechanical drawings, do they show the refrigerant pipes and things like that? I said, not really. Even its full construction, they don't. You won't show a pipe or a conduit or a cable less than say 50 mil.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's gonna be a spaghetti all around your drawings.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay, because they were saying, oh, we've done 80% of the job, and he wanted to understand what the 80% means. But then the engineering comes into place that you gotta make your judgment. Have your own judgment and see, okay, should I presume that they've done the refrigerant pipe or not, or anything I can do as a presume, can I make presumptions or not? And so that's kind of the skills that I'm day to day using it. It hasn't gone. I still get phone calls sometimes from colleagues in like engineering questions. And, the other day, my brother is in the same industry, electrical engineer. He called me because I did a lot of data centers. He's never done data centers. He called me the other day and asked a few questions about data center. He said, this guy is looking for a 250 megawatt data center. I did a quick calc and he probably needs about 100 transformers. I said, that's what you need. Because I work on one of the 250 megawatt in it was here, but the work was in Singapore. I said, yes. It was the size of a soccer field. 9 levels. Each floor you had its own HV substation, then another 10 LV substation, and he was surprised. I said, if they're looking for such a big data center,
it's so. I think congratulations for going into construction law. Like you said, that for me is a very wise transition. Because ultimately you do have transferable skills and you do have that background in, like you said, refrigerant pipes or reading drawings. Because I always would think that, I always feel like the law and even contracts to a certain extent, if you take out annexures and drawings, but they are words. They are words, sometimes numbers, and very rarely drawings. And that's where I feel like, engineering has maybe a different bent because there's always so much in the drawings. The drawings for me, you can write whatever you want in text, your specification, your contract, whatever, but if there's something very explicit in the drawing, then you've got no out. And I think the second thing too, and you mentioned it about bringing in the experts, and then that fine line I can imagine that you have to walk between professional opinion, or maybe use the word presumption, and engineering background to legal case and inference or position of what you are doing in a certain case. It sounds like you have, but for me that feels like that has to be a very hard Chinese wall.
It is.
Yes. How do you do that?
I think just exercising, doing more like that. As I said at the start, it wasn't easy. It was always, but then you got to be like, don't worry about the comments about the actual engineering. Just think about legally what that builder or the subcontractor should have done or ought to, should have done, and they haven't. And then leave, say for example, they should have done that. They should have properly supervise the work. But you can't say as a lawyer, you can't say, oh, they should have provided a docket, daily docket or a program, or
Sure.
leave that to the expert to say
Yes.
that these are the steps that have missed throughout the course of the construction. But it comes to my mind, and I don't mind, repeating them because I don't want to forget them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It reminds me of maybe in development or even in engineering to a certain extent, where you're not particularly the expert or the person who needs to be competent with that particular case, project or whatnot. But a lot of the time you do bring in the experts, the competent people, and you say, well, here's my view, what do you think?
Yeah.
And more and more as things get more complex, particularly in construction and design, relying on those experts, I think, is key. But you're right, to not be like, well, this is what I think, but to let them give you the answer.
But when the engineering side comes very handy is when you actually receive the expert who are the engineers on the other side, their opinion, and hey, what about this?
Yes.
Or because we have to brief them, right? We have to raise questions. Can you review these documents and tell us A, B, C, and D, right?
Yeah.
Those questions are important, right?
Yeah.
What question are we going to, because you got to know, like, this is your case, you got to make it up. And then this is when the engineering comes very handy, as into, okay, or when you do the comparison between the reports, the other part is expert or expert engineers or expert has said this. What do you think about this? Like, how can we, make an assessment of the two results? This is actually, this is that I'm getting kind of to it, I'm sort of looking from a different point of view.
Yes.
You utilize my engineering as in, getting into the depths of that expert report, say, okay, now I've got all the results. What does it mean? How can I use them now legally? Do I need to further investigate that? Is there any other aspects that I need to look into it or not? That's actually one of the things I just reminded me to.
Well, you're using your engineering curiosity.
Yeah.
And that I always will say that's the beauty of the engineering mindset, is the challenging the status quo, being curious, 5 whys across risk assessment. You really have to be diving in and out, like people say, going down each rabbit hole to make sure that there's nothing down there that you might actually be the outcome that you might be looking for.
Yeah.
You mentioned something before about to stand out. You said about that, you think that successful people, or at least have that position to stand out. Your journey to go from engineer to lawyer was your way of saying, well, I'm going to do something different. And a lot of the time we see people, or at least I do, and in market and industry and unis, who are just like, I'm going to do this. Society says, go do this, punch this number, do this course, do this, do that. And I'm just going to go down this. And I wanted to say, like, vanilla, because a lot of people, it's very important. And I think we are in society, there is very much a, go do this, get your job, be an electrical engineer, get your masters, become a technical expert, do your data centers, off you go.
Yeah.
Have you often reflected on what it would be like now, maybe if you'd chosen that path not to stand out or do something radically different? Because I don't hear a lot of engineers turning to lawyers. And then I think further, after that reflection, looking at it now, how do you think you can take what you've done and then further break the mold?
I think if I would have not done this, I'm getting bored soon. Like, if I do something repetitive, I get bored. And I knew, I'm gonna be bored, and I wouldn't have had any motivation to wake up to your first question in the morning.
Yeah.
because reflecting back, unless you get a big change or get into, like, I would have not seen myself doing a technical thing for the rest of my life. I've got like say 40 years of my professional career, right?
Yeah.
And I can't just sit down and work with numbers for 40 years. Unless something happens here, obviously, you go into management roles and people management if you want to. Because in engineering, you either do management, people management, or technical expertise, right? I could not see myself doing technical for like 40 years. I admire people who does it, we need those people. But it wasn't me, it's not in my personality. I like to talk, I like to go out, meet people, see clients and things like that. Some people, you get surprised, they hate it.
Yes.
They hate seeing a client. They love working on a drawing, piece of paper, numbers, and that's what they want to do. That's what I was different, and because it wasn't something that was fully in my control, as in, yes, if you want to get into people management, you will, but you got to work towards it. And as I mentioned, I never wanted to be a lawyer. I chose that to get into the management, people management, and you become a director. You got to do contract reviews, you got to do employment, HR, deal with HR and things like that. But funny enough, you're gonna laugh, but when I looked at my HEX and my fear of debt of 110 grand,
wow.
Then I was like, okay, I've done this and I put so much effort. Let's just give it a go, because I will regret it. If I don't try, if I was not trying being a lawyer, I would have regretted it. So what if, And I guess I'm in the trial period at the moment.
Yeah. How long now? Since
9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been 9 months.
Wow.
And it's been very challenging. Not the work, the transition's been very challenging.
Yes.
Which I will explain that as well, because
Please.
I think it's important for people, not engineering to law, but anyone who does a career change.
Yes.
You may think you are financially okay, you're mentally, because there's a few elements, You change your career after, say, 10 years.
Yeah.
Any industry, anything, no one's going to pay you the same amount of money that you have accumulated in the past 10 years. Slowly, going up the ladder.
You're going up, and then all of a sudden, whoa.
That's it. Because you got to accept it, Yes, you've got softer skills, you've got the network, you've got the people around you.
Yeah.
You can work, but you don't have that technical expertise. It's something pretty new to you. Right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. Second is you got to be able to mentally accept the fact that wherever you were, I was a principal engineer myself.
Yeah.
I had a team of 5-6 people, electrical. I was part of the leadership team. We were sitting down with directors, which job we're gonna bid for, what direction we're heading, utilization, do this, do that, training, supervising. It was good, I was in a very prestigious position, right?
Yeah.
Then mentally you gotta accept it that you were there, now you are like at the lowest part of the ladder, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that people disrespecting you, but
it's a different role.
It's a different role,
position.
You can't expect yourself to start a new job, a new career, and then sit at the board meeting. It's not gonna happen.
Oh, you're not going to the board meetings? What, 9 months? Come on.
This is my personal experience. I don't think I've ever mentioned it to anyone, but it was a lot more challenging than I was expecting. A lot more.
Yeah.
to deal with, and it's got nothing to do with your job, with your managers, with the firm you work for. It's all personal.
It's pride, right? Is it pride?
Yeah.
Is it self-esteem and
I think so. Yeah.
self-recognition?
I think so.
Yeah. Where you peg yourself in some weird like societal scale.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe a company or a business one.
Maybe.
I look at it as the ultimate pivot. And I think the art of undertaking a career pivot is something that a lot of people want to do, but they don't have the courage to do.
Exactly.
There's a lot of fear of the unknown, like you mentioned, the emotional, that rate pegging that we talked about. But my view is that, to your point, if you can take what you did here and leverage it into there, that pivot will be the best move that you ever made.
Probably, yeah. But as you mentioned, I don't want to say it here, but if I knew this is going to be this much challenging, I'll pass that challenging period to some extent. But if I knew this is actually going to be this much challenging, I probably would have not done it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big call.
I probably would have not because, but I got into it. I'm like, okay, now you gotta ask for help. From your family. What do you think? Get that support.
Yes.
I don't think anyone could do it without any kind of support. It's just difficult. It's very, very difficult. It's just, it's just like you're playing volleyball and then all of a sudden, can you play basketball,
Maybe netball's a basketball. Now you can run with the ball. So tell me, anyone who's looking to pivot in their career right now from engineering to something else, what would be one of the top tips that you give them?
I would say do your own research. Make sure you're mentally, emotionally, personally prepared. It's not an easy task.
Yeah.
It's worth doing it because you're actually putting yourself in a situation. This is a huge challenge. You might become an extraordinary person after going through that challenge. But think about it. Make sure you have support. Whether it's again emotionally or financially, any aspects. Don't think that. Think it that way. You are starting something from the beginning.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You've already gone through all these steps of the ladder. Now you are jumping
to a different ladder.
To a different ladder, starting from bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe this time you may accelerate and move up faster if you be smart enough.
Yes.
Which you have to.
Yes.
You don't wanna. You don't want to be as in the same pace as your But be prepared.
Yeah.
Do your own research. Be prepared. And then don't just make the move for the sake of changing career. When you're making the move, make sure you make the right move.
Yes.
Do your own research about the company you're going to.
Yeah.
Even the future of the work you want to do.
Yeah.
What it's going to be like in 5 years' time. Say I'm an engineer and I want to get into IT now. What is going to look like in IT industry in the next 5-10 years? Am I going to have a job? If I'm taking the risks of changing my career, going through all those stuff, and in 5 years' time I'll be made redundant and the machine's going to do my work for me.
Yeah.
Then what's the point?
Well, thank you first up for the take on the pivot because, I often feel that engineers have the biggest opportunity to pivot only because of their mindset and their technical skills and how they approach problems and all the other stuff. Congratulations on jumping to the other ladder and climbing up it. And I'm very interested to see what happens in the future. I'll see what happens. I'll give it a year or two, right? And I feel you're right. There's this big hump and that those little bits that you talked about on that journey, going up and down that ladder or graph or whatever we're going to look at, really would be great to unpack, because those steps need to be done. And having pivoted in my own career, I don't think if I wasn't an engineer, I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah, probably.
So I'll at least applaud engineers for that. About future, about tech, what's your take on disruption in law with machine learning, AI, and tech? I noticed that you have some take on that now, and I can see some things that you've been putting out about that. Tell us a bit more about that, and maybe what your take is on the future.
I think it's definitely impacting in a good way. In a good way, as in it increases efficiency, it decreases the costs, as into the client. If I've got to sit down and review a contract for 10 hours, maybe I can make it in 5 hours and getting some help from AI.
Yeah.
It's probably dangerous for us. I think you gotta. I was a huge advocate for not using AI.
Right.
I was against it. I remember.
When was this? Like
always.
A year ago. Always.
A year ago, I had an intern, and I was. I asked him to do a report, Excel sheet report. We did a site inspection, and I said, and then when I looked at the report, and you can see, how AI, some words are very, you could say that
it's something bold randomly.
Or a very, very formal word.
Yes.
In an engineering report, like you're not writing something to the president of.
Sure.
You want this report to be as easy as possible to read through by anyone, by client, by tradesman, And I had a big fight with him. I said, I do not want you to use ChatGPT at all. Go and change it, blah, blah. So I was fully against.
Wow.
But then someone told me, you should learn not to get AI to do your work, but learn to use AI to help you with your work.
Yeah.
And there's a huge difference, right?
There is.
Because if AI can do my work, then I'm a useless person, sitting in the office and doing nothing. But if I can get AI to increase the quality of my work, increase the efficiency, then why not? And I think in law it's going that way. We've got co-pilots. I've seen a lot of apps actually coming out that you are a small builder or subcontractor.
Yep.
You don't have the budget to spend a couple of grand on legal. You get subscriptions fee. It goes through your contract. They've got the actual human sitting on the other side. If you've got some questions, regarding to some of the clauses and stuff, you can ask the question.
Yeah.
It's definitely going that way.
Sure.
I was talking to one of my mate. He's also an IT. He is a very smart guy. And I said, hey, Pouyan, let's do something. He's worried about his job because let's do something about law, and I can do the software engineering side of it. You can give me the information. What do you want? And this is something we're actually sitting down and think about it. What's not out there which we might need in 5 years.
Yeah.
Which can be done with AI. As I said, I think the contract review, to some extent, it can be done because, as you mentioned, it's just words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you teach your AI to pick up the onerous terms and limitation of liability insurance, that's 50% of your job. Then it comes to the human being and say, okay, now what my clients want.
Yes.
What they want to achieve out of this, what they want to be protected from. Then it comes the human, but that's the other 50%, right?
Mm.
So the easy 50% can be done. You're efficient, you charge your client less, your client's happy.
Yeah.
And think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It gets pretty accurate, sometimes better than us. But yeah, definitely most of the industry, especially legal, goes that way.
Yeah.
With co-pilots, I've seen some of these big legal database they've also done. You know, when you do your research to find the cases and matters and things, and
Yep.
it got the AI embedded and
Yep.
for your search engine and things like that. It's
Because it's all like publicly available.
Those are not the subscriptions.
No, right.
They are, you got to subscribe. But even those people, they embedded AI into their system.
Yep.
To help you to find
The information.
the information sooner.
Yes. Yeah, which, time is money.
Yeah.
Which does make a big difference when
lawyers
aren't cheap, right? Yeah, wow. So, what for you, you talked about getting up, you want to help people. Just an insight, very small one into, you mentioned things like defects and claims and whatever. Like, what's one of the projects that you're most proud of and why?
There was a matter, which I actually got it through a friend.
Wow.
He's a QS. He's a good engineer. Called me. I actually wanted to use him as an expert.
Right.
So I gave him a call. Said, hey, can you be a QS expert on this matter? And then he said, actually, I've got a friend who's in trouble. And anyway, we got him engaged. He is a small developer. He had some issues with his bank guarantees, and he was he was really desperate. I'm so proud of it because I should mention it. We failed, so we did not we did not win.
Wow. Okay.
We actually failed.
You didn't win.
No, we didn't win.
Wow.
But I'm proud because we tried every single possible way to help him out, and we did. I remember because it was kind of attached. The matter was kind of attached because I got it. That was my first matter that I brought into the firm, and
wow.
And I was like, he's Iranian. I want to help him out.
Sure.
But it fell. I should say that, but I'm proud of it because I did all I had.
You put everything into it.
120% of myself into the matter.
Yeah.
And he could see that,
Yeah.
And then sometimes you do, you try hard, but you don't fail. But actually, that's a success. For me, it was a success.
Yes.
Maybe not for him.
But you shook hands. You did everything you needed to do. We'll just have a quick look at this quickly. Oh yeah, yeah. But you shook hands. You went your separate ways, and you said, "I gave it everything I've got. We didn't win, but I could see how that would be a massive moment."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was upset, but for the outcome, but I was happy because I said, to myself, there's nothing that you could have done. You've done everything, and sometimes that's life, isn't it?
You mentioned about bringing in work, and I can imagine where you are. Business development is important. You have to be able to not just do the work, but you need to bring in work. How important is your brand and your network to enable you to bring cases and do your own business development?
Very important. I have a big network of engineers, consultants, project managers, builders, and I keep my relationship with them. So I give them a call once a month. Hey, how you going? Happy New Year. Send them an email. Happy New Year. You want to come for a coffee catch up or things like that.
Yeah.
I remember. I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I first started to look for a legal role about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I paused because we were expecting a baby and I couldn't do the transition.
Yeah.
And that guy who interviewed me, he was a principal at a boutique law firm. He said, if I want to give you an advice, which I've learned it the hard way,
Yeah.
keep your network, keep your relationship with people you know.
Yeah.
They will come to you, whether not today or tomorrow, next week, maybe next year.
Yeah.
And you should be able to help them out. That was something for me before. Actually, when I changed, before when I resigned, before I left my previous place, I gave them every single my client a call. I said, hey, just out of courtesy, I'm doing this transition. It was great to work with you, but I'm hoping to, keep the relationship. Things like that. I'm gonna give you a call back when I'm settled and know what's actually happening and what I'll be doing. And I think that's one of the advantages of changing a career, but still being in the same kind of industry, because you have that, huge network that, one day you might be useful for them, one day they might be useful for you. Like my mate who's doing QS, or I'm using another firm to be a hydraulic expert. So can you give me a mates rate? But because I'm helping my client. If I have to go to someone that I don't know, they might charge double. Or because they know me, this is how you get referrals and work. And I'm sure in engineering is kind of the same.
It is.
You get always your first job to bring in is probably the hardest, or the first couple. Once you do the good job, a good quality work, then it just keeps coming.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
The avalanche. Look, you're right. One day they're a client, the next they're your boss, the next they're a consultant working for you on a job. It's a very small world.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the future for you? Continue to keep learning, continue to grow, win more cases, get out there, introduce tech, replace yourself. Tell me, what's the future look like for you?
I think the future is for me to, I'm happy here, to keep learning this side of, and being on this side of the fence for a little while.
Yeah.
I do miss engineering sometimes, I should say that. I do. I think that the work, the teamwork, going on site. I was telling to one of my colleagues the other day, I said I was probably on half of this building roofs, half of the city's building on the roof, like just for inspections and which is amazing, right?
Yeah, site work's great.
It's good, you get to go stuff like I was in QVB once into their things, I don't know what they call it, but which normal people don't get the chance to do.
No.
But I think I'll be doing this for a little while, at least the next couple of years. Learn as much as I can. I'm not a young, fresh out of uni who wants just the money and the title.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen you do a lot of posts for young engineers.
Yep.
And I actually wanted to say that I repeated that to myself a couple of nights ago. I want to say that to young engineers.
Yep.
When I started my grad role, I was very much into, I need to become an intermediate engineer. I want this title. I want this money.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was actually getting paid a lot better than my other peers as a grad.
Yeah.
But that desire that you finish uni so you know everything, you, instead of learning that you need to earn something, you'll be more demanding.
Yeah.
Maybe that was me, but I thought I should probably bring it up because I think it's a useful tip.
Yeah.
Then I was sitting there, I had a mentor, he's retired now. we were chit-chatting. I said, hey, can I, when do you think I can get promoted? He said, mate, just give yourself 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years. In your, as I said, 45 years of career professional.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Give yourself a couple of years. Then the money comes. The title comes. Then you will be the one who would say, okay, I want to go and work for that company.
Yeah.
I want to get paid this amount of money and I want to have that title. But you must learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to be doing that. And I really moved up a lot quicker than my other peers. And the same mentality I've got here. So I don't care who I was before or what I was doing before.
Yeah.
I'm here to learn. I'm here to do any kind of work. I'm here to observe.
Yeah.
Get experience. Do extra stuff. I'm on the train every day. Almost 3 hours a day.
Wow.
1.5 each way. Print out the stuff. Read cases.
Yeah.
Learn more. Like this is how you can accelerate your pathway, right?
Yeah.
And this was the thing I wanted to mention in this video, that young engineers don't chase the money or the title. Chase the learning as much as you can, and you will surprise.
The title,
you wake
the money
up
will come
one day and it all comes.
Yeah.
And that's my personal experience, and I'm sure that's a lot of people's experience.
Yeah. Look, I couldn't agree more. And thank you for the insight. I see a lot of young engineers pushing for the title, the design manager, the senior. They want the senior project engineer or whatever it is, or even I want to be a project manager. I'm like, well, you need to manage some projects first, even as an assistant or even as an engineer or a coordinator. And so much at the moment is caught up in titles.
Yeah.
And we touched on it earlier about those layers, that prestige, that societal, paradigm around you need to be this or that, or this is my title and this is what I am and I can be that. Many times I've seen lots of engineers and project managers in roles that they just aren't fit to do. They're not competent to do. And that, unfortunately, in my mind, particularly in Australia, means that we have people in roles where they are key decision makers, but they can't actually have the competence to make the decisions to allow construction to proceed, designs to be approved, and other matters to be resolved in a way that would be quicker and efficient, more efficient. So you hit the nail on the head, and I often talk about young engineers to be able to learn, be curious, and I believe it's very important to always talk about the value that you bring. I would always say to any engineer, go ask for a promotion every day of the week, but don't push for a title that you're not ready for. Yeah,
absolutely. And another thing is just put up your hand for extra work.
Yeah, always.
Always, show that initiatives.
Yeah.
Because yes, you want to be a project manager, you have to manage some projects as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But you have to be given that.
Yeah.
Ask for it.
Yeah.
Can I have this small fit out job?
Yeah.
Can I manage this small fit out? Start from the small stuff. Obviously you can't manage as your first one the renovation of a central station.
Yeah.
But if you want it, if you're willing to want it, you have to earn it and you have to ask for it.
Yeah. If you don't ask, you're not going to get.
You're not going to get it. And if they put you in a position that you are not ready or you are not competent, you go down.
Yes.
You will fall. You will go down, and that probably cause more detriment to you personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Than just going slowly up.
Yeah. I always find too, and I often say, if you're in an environment where there is reward and recognition, doing your own business development, meeting up with people outside of hours, trying to win your own work, you'd be surprised. I think it doesn't matter how much work you're given or extra work that you do. But if you might be able to bring in a client or infer that there's an opportunity that someone else might not have been a part of, that in my mind is another very good way.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly for success and business development, personal brand and network are obviously on the back of that. I mean, sure, if your uncle's cousin is a $1 billion property developer, that also helps. But yeah, I think that is also good. And the only other thing I'd probably want to touch on, only because we're talking about it, I think I'm passionate about it, is efficiency. So if a young engineer says, hey, we've been doing it this way for the last year and this is how I've been taught, but I've come up with a new way which is more efficient or will save us money or has some other outcome that's a tangible benefit for the business or the operation, massive.
Yeah.
Like that is promotion material in my mind.
Yeah.
You're right. There is a part about being humble and being curious, particularly in your younger age. Everyone wants to be, the next startup. Everyone wants to have the next unicorn. Like everyone's now, I want a side hustle. It's just like, whoa. Just do the motions, work your way and progress. And if you can do those few things, I think you'll go a long way and accelerate your career.
And it happens. It really happens. It's not a rocket science.
No.
It just, you need to put the pieces of puzzles next to each other and it happens.
Yeah, that's right.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, Pouyan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having
I've
me.
thoroughly enjoyed the chat. I'm very excited to see how you go as a lawyer. I mean, 9 months, it's cool. And I mean, wow, what a pivot. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I really like this friendly discussion we've had, and hopefully there are some tips and insights for people watching it.
That'd be great. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.